Good evening. My name is Ruban Roberts, and I am the CEO of RER Consulting. RER Consulting has two signature programs. One is Team Talk, where we work with getting the youth and local police officers really acclimated together so they can gain a better understanding of each other. Our second signature program is the COVID-19 Mental Health and Wellness Program. Tonight we have our Wellness Wednesdays, and tonight a big part of our Wellness Wednesday is of our COVID program is the Wellness Wednesdays program. We have a very special guest with us tonight uh, from the Brown Goddess Collective, Ms. Shanta Haymore-Kearney, and she'll be speaking to you about uh, how to navigate the waters of mental health concerns by the use of mindfulness training and yoga. But first, I want to just share with you some of the things that we'd like for you to do while you're on watching us today. First of all, I'd like for you to make sure that you reach out to your family, any family members that you have around. We've been doing this now this is our fifth edition. And one of the things that we want to do is make sure that we get as many of your family members or yourselves available to watch, to learn some strategies and techniques. Today is all about wellness. It's going to be about wellness. We're going to give you some context, and then we're going to give you a lot of tips for wellness activities in terms of yoga and mindfulness training. So grab your family members, if you guys have an opportunity to get into some active wear at the towards the end of our interview, uh, Shante will give you some yoga exercises that you can use on a daily basis to de-stress, decompress. So I want you to make sure that you take full advantage of this opportunity. And even if you're not in active wear, she's going to give you some activities that you can do, whether you're in your office or at home, wherever you are, to really de-stress, decompress, and just really center yourself. I want to first invite you to go to our website. It's on the crawl, and you'll see it is mymentalhealthmiami.com. And in the website on the right hand corner, when you type in mymentalhealthmiami.com, you'll see a link for the survey. I want you to take that survey. Purpose of the survey is so that you will gain a better understanding of where you are in terms of stress, anxiety, depression, and levels of support. You'll receive a scorecard once you complete the survey. And that survey scorecard will tell you where you fall along that spectrum. If your score is high, we encourage you to contact our care coordination team at 786-433-8487. And even if your score isn't high, but you need to speak to someone, if you have some concerns, and it doesn't have to be about mental health, it could be about anything. It could be about environmental health. So things that you need in terms of food, shelter, housing, you contact our care coordination team, and they'll follow up with you regarding those issues that you may have. But you must take the survey in order to get your score. Know your score. Know your score. And you can also contact the care coordination team that can assist you with the survey as well. And that number is 786-433-8487. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you today someone that I've met recently, and I've had an opportunity to see her work firsthand. I mean, it was impressive, and she had a nice audience and full participation, engagement, and the responses after folks actually participated, saying how different they felt from that very limited exercise that they did. So I can imagine how when she goes into a deeper sessions or have multiple sessions with you, how that will have a long-term impact on you. Again, our guest tonight is from Brown Goddess Collective. Her name is Shante Haymore-Kearney. And welcome, Shante.
Thank you for having me. Good evening, and good evening to everyone who's watching. I'm really excited to be here. Whenever I have a chance to talk about mental health and wellness, especially to the communities that I represent as a African American, as a Miamian, as a woman, as a person who cares about others, it's always a joy for me. So I'm very happy to be here.
Now, speaking of that, I know that, you know, there's some information out there that speaks about the stress levels for women in general, and then the stress levels for, minority women and African American women specifically. And they talk about how high they are. And I just want to speak to you and ask you, as a woman in this field and dealing with stress, can you speak to what those stress levels are like, and what do you do, or what do you recommend to help folks to de-stress and decompress?
Yeah, so whenever someone is, standing at the intersections of several different identities that are marginalized or oppressed or at risk, as we say, then the opportunity for stress and for mental angst or for um, physical needs or environmental needs, that level increases like with each intersection that you're at. So and the further away that we get from like the white male patriarchal kind of like society that we have been brought up in this country. So when I say that I'm at the intersection of being a Black American and I'm also a woman, um, each one of those identities holds its own level of stress and or trauma, right? So being Black in this country, it's an everyday, it's not necessarily an everyday struggle, but it's an everyday experience, right? Even when you're in an environment that may feel comfortable and safe, there's always this underlying current of the what ifs or the things that have happened in the past, right? That have made up our experience. As a woman, as a Black woman, I'm sorry, I multiply that by, let's just say two, knowing that Black women are oftentimes, although we're paid less than everyone else, even though we have the higher number of master's degree and higher number of graduate degrees in per capita than most other demographics. And we often have a lot of additional responsibilities that can bring stress. And stress isn't necessarily always just when things are going bad. I think that's also like a misconception on what stress is. Stress could mean stress is just anything that raises your nervous system or that raises your heart rate or that raises your need to like kind of get out of the status quo. So even if, let's just say, you put your house on the market because you got a really great job in another city, right? So you got this great job in another city, and that's a blessing, right? So you're getting more money. You're gonna get a new home in the city, so you need to put your house on the market or move. Even though those are all great things that are going on, things that you've been wanting, manifesting, praying for, it's still stress in that you have additional responsibilities, additional considerations to take into account. So even when it's raining blessings, you still have to know how to manage the stress um, in order to just be on an even keel and grounded throughout your day and like moving with ease, which is what I'm all about. I'm all about like moving with as much ease as possible.
So that's what I want to talk to you about today. I mean, you talked about intersectionality and in various forms. And one of the things I think that in a male-dominated, basically world, I think women in general have to deal with microaggressions in a certain way. And then when you put in race and ethnicity onto that, there's a whole nother thing going on. But I want to ask you, what is a coping strategy to
Mhm.
deal with some of these microaggressions that we have, dealing with the intersectionality in terms of just having to deal with uh, someone who is uh, speaking to you in a very offensive or marginalized way. I
Mhm.
mean, what can you give our listening audience as just not, I don't want you to give the whole thing away today, right now, but just to start, because I think that there are a lot of folks that are dealing with issues where, supervisors on their job, or just dealing with some employees that may have a lack of consideration of a person's culture, that sort of thing, or just some of the things that you may experience again as it relates to intersectionality. So, what are some of the things that you do? How do you get yourself in a space to do that woosah moment?
There's a couple of different things for that woosah moment. Like we're all striving for that. Um,
Right.
but what I believe is this is part of the reason why having a community of support is so important.
Okay.
Because when you have a community of support, what that does is not only does it remind you that you're not alone, but it also affirms you in your experience. So um, it also affirms you in your experience, and then it gives you the supportive infrastructure to lean into. So whether that be talking it out, like talking to a friend, talking to a group at church, or talking to um, another community that you're in, right? Like, so when people talk and share their stories, not only is it's healing for the person who is sharing it, because you get to release it verbally, you get to express it instead of holding it in and letting things fester. But what it does also, it gives the people who are listening to you an opportunity to also see those same things. Oftentimes they see those same things reflected in their life, right? Because we all have these experiences. Microaggressions are nothing new. And oftentimes it's not until you share it and you realize, oh my gosh, that happened to my other coworker, or oh, that's what that means. Oh, I understand why my hours got cut. I didn't realize that that was something that happens with other folks. Like, it takes you out of that silo, and then you get to share. Other people get to hear it and then see it reflected in their own life, and then you get to affirm each other together. So affirming by like knowing like you're actually not the one. You're
You're not
not
crazy.
you're not crazy. You're not losing it. Like, you're not tripping.
Right.
Like, it's not just you. There, it actually is more
Right.
to it. So
You're
letting
not alone.
things letting things out is important. And
So
if
let
you,
me say this to you, because you're I want you to be very clear, because I agree with you that the more we communicate, but sometimes we have to be careful, in my opinion, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, about who you share things with, because if they're not in the space uh, to be supportive or receive what you're saying, they can actually do more damage, in my estimation. So when you say share, describe who you're talking about sharing this information with, because I know that we are very social people.
mhm,
And one of the things that we thrive off is being able to socialize. Even though even folks who are introverts, they're social still.
mhm.
But you have to have someone that you can communicate with that can really show support. So talk to me about that, what that looks
Yeah.
like.
So, I'm coming from also the context of being the goddess in chief and founder of Brown Goddess Collective. So, and I created Brown Goddess Collective as a space for Black and Brown women to get together and share. And this was in 2018, in the wake of Eric Garner, Mike
Yes.
Brown, and Trayvon Martin. Like, and so I just kept thinking, like, how are we going to get through this if we don't have anybody to talk to? Who else is going through this? I was a new mom, and I've always been a Black woman, but I've never, first time being a new mom. And it just hit me differently. Like, I needed to talk to other moms. I had all this fear and anxiety about raising up a Black boy in this country, in this state. Um, and, so I guess the point that I'm trying to make is, when you find like minded, like hearted people, that's the first thing. Like, finding a space that you align with, so that you do have a comfortable and like, uh, you're on the same vibration level of other people who are there. The second thing that I say, so you can come to Brown Goddess Collective and see if that's a good fit for you. But the second thing that I say is that when you share, sharing is part of the healing process. And so it's not always appropriate to share with every single person.
Right.
So come, the first person that you need to get clear with is yourself.
Hmm.
The best way that I can suggest to do that is by journaling or writing. Um,
Okay.
that is a
That
really,
is another form of communication. So that's another form of release.
it is, and it's so
Writing down.
underrated, I believe.
Right. So that's great. So first, be clear with yourself. I like that.
Mhm.
And one form of doing that is journaling. And would you say being introspective, taking a look at your what's going on with you, and not always looking out to see what others are doing or what you perceive others are doing to you, but also looking at how you may be receiving what's actually happening around you?
Absolutely. And not only, so self reflection is one of the golden keys, I believe, because if you find yourself, if someone finds themselves in the same type of relationship with the same partner or the
Yes.
same type of boss, like in every job, the boss is so similar, and like coworkers are always tripping in the same way, and it's always the same, and you're the common denominator, then as a person who wants to grow, right, and wants to experiencing something different, then you have to start with yourself. Everything starts with you. And there's an opportunity through mindfulness and through yoga or through meditation to have the chance to kind of start to shed a lot of the tension, physical tension in our bodies, mental and emotional tension in our mind and in our heart through these practices. And what that does is that helps you get still enough so that you can listen, because we all have a lot of chatter in our brains, in our ears,
Yeah.
in our minds. So
Yeah.
the self-reflection can happen by taking a walk. Taking walks is a great way to self-reflect. It doesn't have to be a fast walk. It doesn't have to be a long walk. Getting out into nature, being in a place that you are not the center focus of everything. When you're at the beach, or if you're on a trail, or if you're in the woods, it's kind of actually really hard to only focus on yourself because everything is so much bigger than you. And then you
Right.
realize, like, it helps you put everything in perspective and like rise above so you can see things more clearly. Um, and so that's another thing, like removing yourself from your actual surrounding is a really great way to gain some self reflection. Um, so I like to, personally, I love travel, I love nature, I love retreats. And that's something that I've been getting into, since 2017. Um, and since then, I've really gained more experience about why and how our environment affects our mental capacity. And when we take ourselves out of our environment, whether it's for a day or for a couple of hours, and I'm not talking about like the type of self care where you just go get your nails done. That's beautiful and great too. And I'm a fan of that. And there's a deeper level of self care and mental health and wellness that that's like it's all internal, right? So
Right.
it's listening to how you speak to yourself, you know, the things you think about yourself, and then in turn the things that you think about others. So I'll stop right there because
No, no, you're fine. So what I'm hearing is that the first thing that you're saying is that we have to have some sort of a self-awareness, right? And we do that by being more introspective and looking, starting with self. We definitely need to release. So you do that by communicating with folks. You can communicate with friends, someone that can understand what your situation is, and be supportive. You can journal, and then you do the self-care with the introspection in terms of removing yourself from some of those toxic environments or situations, and putting yourself in a place where you can see things from a different perspective. And so you're saying going on walks. I love to go on rides. I'll go on a long car ride, and I'll turn on my music, and that's something that, really, it clears my head. And like you were saying, and I want to be sure that everyone knows that there are varying degrees of mental health issues. Some are situational, some are surface level, and some are very deep, right? In terms of their diagnoses and that sort of thing. Sometimes what happens is if we don't remove the clutter, if we don't really address the surface level stuff, then they seem to get more severe, more acute. And that's where you'll see folks who may have been looking like they've been struggling with an issue, but now when you see them and they have not addressed anything, it goes deeper. And that's why it's very important to get with folks like, the Brown Goddess Collective, or someone that can really help you to meditate, center yourself, and make sure that you can get back to a place to where you have some balance in life. It's all about balance, and that sort of thing is what I'm hearing you also say.
Yeah.
So I wanted to mention to you something I saw. And folks, I want you to know that this month is Minority Mental Health Month, and we're talking about how we can really utilize mindfulness and training and yoga to address some of the mental issues and things that arise with us. And I remember seeing this particular scene in the movie with Tina Turner, and she was in an abusive relationship, as everyone knows, with her husband Ike Turner. And her friend taught her, introduced her to Buddhism, and she began to chant. And this was her way of centering herself. This is her way of removing herself from all of the clutter, the distractions. It's what I'm assuming. You can speak to it more clearer than I can, I'm sure. And in the midst of all of the chaos, she found a space and a place to where she can have her own retreat for however long she did it, but it brought it back to center. And that's what it appeared to be to me. Speak to that to me. Tell me what that's like and what that's about. It doesn't have to be associated with Buddhism or chanting. It could be some other stuff, but just having the having the ability to just remove yourself from all of the chaos and bring your place to this place where you're centered in the midst of all of the chaos that's going on. Talk to me about that.
I remember that scene, and actually, Tina Turner, old picture of Tina Turner, I put on my vision board last year. For some reason, I just felt really connected to her and her energy and her transformation, and her journey. And you're right, it doesn't have to be about Buddhism or chanting in another language, but in particular, what she was doing or what that type of practice does, it is a form of meditation, and it's a
Right.
mantra. So, a mantra is a word or a phrase that is said over and over again, repeated for a number of times, certain number of times, um, and for a certain purpose. And all mantras is using your voice again. We talk about sharing and releasing. So using your voice and sound as a way to not only release energy, but depending on what the mantra is, it's like you're planting a seed. You're
Mm.
planting a seed inside of yourself and getting into a space where the repetition gets you present to the moment, because you can't repeat something over and over and over again if you're thinking about all this other stuff. So, much like meditation really is just the practice of focusing on one thing at one time.
Mm.
So, you can meditate in various ways. There are walking meditations, you know, there's guided meditations. You can meditate by looking at a candle, or there's sun gazing meditations where you look at the sun at sunrise, and there's breath work, right? So when you're focusing only at one thing at one time, that brings you into this present moment. And what coming to this present moment should do, or usually does, is it brings people to a deep state of gratitude, because you recognize that this moment that we're having right now really is the only moment that matters. Like the ones this morning are gone, and the ones later this afternoon haven't happened yet. So when you can be present, you're brought to focus of gratitude. When you're in the energy of gratitude, again, it's all about perspective, right? I heard a song that said someone used to complain about not having any shoes on their feet because they grew up poor until they met someone who didn't have any feet.
Right.
And so being in that state of perspective and gratitude gives you the space to appreciate. And when you can appreciate and when you kind of come down, like where you're more calm, the things that happen inside of our body with our nervous system are and you get to a state of calm, which is when our parasympathetic nervous system kicks in. We're able to make more rational decisions. We're able to think, okay, if I'm feeling stuck in this job and I want to get out, what are my options? What can I do? So you can sit down, you can assess. And now all of a sudden you're starting to write a list about the different options. Oh, and now you're starting to think about the people who can connect you to those different options. Oh, and you
But you
realize
just
all these skills that you have and you can start to put things together. But when you're in that frantic state, you can't. So
but you
that's
just did something, right? You just did something.
what did I
You
do?
just exhaled. And before we start going through these thought processes, I know that you do some exercises in terms of breathing, like you said, to bring the stress level, the anxiety down, which again helps to remove some of the clutter and frees you up to be able to do those other things that involve more of a thought process. But the just the power of, and I've seen it when you did it with the class, which teaching the breathing exercises, I think were phenomenal. So I want to say that to you, and I want you to speak to that. But I want to also mention, because I have to. The first couple of times I tried to meditate, either I fell asleep or oh, I have what am I going to have for dinner, or had these thoughts that just random thoughts just running through my mind, and I'm like, okay, wait a minute, you got to stay focused. You got to stay focused, and I just these random thoughts just kept coming through my mind. So talk to those who are looking to embark on this journey with the meditation and the mindfulness, but how to deal with those random thoughts, or just you're in such a place of peacefulness that you feel so relaxed and you just doze off. Talk to us about that, because I felt like I really wasn't accomplishing anything. So talk to us about that.
So I feel like one of the biggest myths that I hear is like this idea that meditation means that someone's mind is so still and they can focus and concentrate. And I'm like, no, that's not what meditation means. That's where it can get you with practice, you
Right.
know. And also considering that the circumstances in the environment of your life are such that you can get into that space. And I always find it funny. Everyone always thinks about food and meditation, like myself included. Like, what is for dinner? So the first thing I say is it's totally normal. It's
Right.
very, very normal, especially if you're just starting.
Right.
Um, we talk about releasing the expectations. Do not expect that you're going to be, you may not even be able to sit still for 5 minutes.
Right.
A lot of people, in particular, people who've experienced trauma or stressful lives, they can't even close their eyes in the beginning.
Right.
It's
They don't
really
feel safe.
hard. Yeah,
Yeah,
and you
they
don't
don't
feel
feel safe.
safe. You don't feel safe.
Right.
Your eyes are fluttering, all the type of things. So that's the first thing. Let's release the expectation that meditation is like this perfect stillness and like as if you're sitting on a mountain, right? And when all those thoughts come up, that's just your brain doing what brains do. Think, brains think. But we are the ones, we as the person, right? The bigger person in our body, we are the ones that get to control our thoughts. Many people don't even know that they can control and choose the thoughts that they think. It's mind blowing, like that concept, right? People just think, well, that's just how I am. This is just what I feel. This is how I've always been doing things. But no, we have so much choice when we have the awareness of what's actually happening in our mind to begin with. So, if you are starting your meditation practice, you've tried to meditate, and those thoughts are coming up, then my suggestion to you is look at the thoughts. Sit there and just notice like what's coming up for you. I like to ask people, like, notice the thought that you just had, almost as if you're sitting at a movie in a movie theater, and the thoughts that are going by the screen are the thoughts of your life, right? And so you can see how you're having conversations with someone, like you're still in the conversation from last week with your coworker, and all the things you should have said that they didn't say and you wanted to say, and what you're going to tell them next time. That person has moved on.
Mm-hmm.
So when you can see that you're in the past, then you can work to do something. Like, what is the healing work behind that? Do you need to work on forgiveness of them? Or maybe it's forgiveness of yourself. Maybe it's, the limiting belief that you're not really enough, and where did that come from? So the meditation is, I like to say, when I'm on my mat, which is like my yoga mat, and I'm either in my yoga practice or meditating, it's like a little observation, like laboratory for me. You can you start to learn how to observe yourself, the patterns that you take, the ways in which you try to cope, when things get stressful. What do you do when all those thoughts are coming up in your head and you meditate? Do you sit with it and try and work through it, struggle through it, or do you get up and say, "Oh, this is it. I'm done. I'm out of here." And where do you do that in your everyday life when
Right,
something's uncomfortable? Because the way
right.
you do one thing is the way that you do everything. So, uh, for those who think that meditation is challenging because of that reason, that's actually like you shedding the layers so that you can get to that place that's probably a little bit closer than what people expect meditation to be like. Um, and the last thing that I will say about that is I actually, like in the start of my retreats or big workshops or programs, I actually like to do meditations where all people do is notice the thoughts that are coming up. I call it like a brain dump. And
Mm-hmm.
then you have your journal next to you, again, with the journal. Notice that's a theme.
Mm-hmm.
And as things come up, you jot it down, because sometimes that's a really great way to like notice, like, what is filling my space. Is it
Mm-hmm.
my, like, okay, so my bills, like all these, oh yeah, I had to pay this person, I had to pay that person, or the things that you need to do, or the, whatever. And then that is you learning more about yourself in that moment. So that's a
Right.
teachable moment.
And I think that oftentimes people, when they're having those thoughts, either they're thoughts about responsibilities or things that they need to do, or there may be negative thoughts about themselves, that they haven't resolved. But I'll tell you what happened. What actually helped me with the meditation. So I went to a practitioner and we did guided imagery,
Mhm.
and the guided imagery gave me a focus. They took me down on this journey. I was in this place, and so my mind had a place to focus. And by the time we got to where it ended, it was a little journey. It took about 5 minutes or maybe less, 3 minutes or whatever. And with the breathing, it was coupled with the breathing exercise. So it helped to de-stress and it helped to clear. And I found myself being able to focus just a little bit longer, until, like you said, it's a practice. You have to train and that sort of thing. I found myself being able to focus a little bit longer than having all of those racing thoughts. But that guided imagery and the breathing really helped me to be able to be able to focus a little bit more and sit still a little bit longer as we went through that journey.
Yeah, guided imagery is a beautiful, beautiful way to practice, for some folks. because it can be like that vivid anchor, like that visual anchor
Hmm.
that takes you down. Usually, it's a path or a forest, or and then you get to activate your senses. So
Hmm.
like as if you could touch the grass, or as if you could smell the flowers, or feel the sun, or hear the birds. And that is actually a practice that anyone can do at any time. That's the five senses grounding practice. It's a type of meditation. You just and I can go through that another time, or but I do it with my son. He's 6 years old, so he can't hardly sit still for 10
Well, that's
seconds.
that's normal.
That's horrible.
Right.
But when he's, in a space where he needs to like kind of calm down, focus, maybe it's fear that
Right.
maybe it's a temper tantrum, maybe whatever is the case. I'll ask him. I'll say, can you see something that's red? What do you see around us that's red? And then that shifts his focus, and he starts looking like at the trees or the plants, or the bedspread or whatever. So there's a lot of different ways to kind of like hijack your nervous system, hijack your um, mental focus, so that you can like snap out of the stress that you're experiencing and get to a place where you can be grounded inside yourself, your own body, and also in your environment and your surroundings.
All right. Thank you so much for that. I'm gonna just again just let folks know this is Wellness Wednesdays, and we're on. We have our special guest Shante Haymore-Kearney. She's from Brown Goddess Collective. We want to make sure that we give you some tips and strategies to really deal with decompression, dealing with the stress and anxiety through the art of using mindfulness training and yoga. And so we're going to actually give you some examples of that today, later on today. One of the things I want to share with you is that this is the COVID-19 Mental Health and Wellness Program, product of RER Consulting. And one of the things that our signature programs is the COVID program where we'd like for you to take our survey. The survey can be found on the mymentalhealthmiami.com. And if you click on that website, you can go there, and up in the right-hand corner, you'll see the survey link. We'd like for you to fill out the link. And once you fill out the link, you'll receive a scorecard. Your scorecard will, once you complete the survey, you'll receive a scorecard. The scorecard will tell you where you are in the areas of stress, depression, anxiety, and levels of support. What's the significance of that? A lot of times we live in such high degree of stress, high degree of anxiety that we normalize it. We're not even realizing the effect that it has on us, not only just from a mental perspective, but a physiological perspective as well. They're all interconnected, right? And so once you have that score and you realize, hey, listen, my stress level is a little bit high, I'm feeling a little bit anxious, or that sort of thing, now you can do something about it. One of the things you can do is you can contact our care coordination team 786-433-8487, and they will guide you to resources like Shante and Brown Goddess Collective, where you can go and practice some meditation techniques or do some mindfulness training and that sort of thing, or other services you may need to tap into. The services don't only include mental health services, but they include environmental services like housing, food, employment. They'll be able to connect you with the appropriate resources once you do that. But you must first take your survey. You must first learn your score, and you can do that at mymentalhealthmiami.com. So, Shante, I want to go in and I want to ask you, how did you find yourself moving into this profession? And tell me, was there some sort of traumatic event or something that happened, a traumatic event or something that happened that guided you here? And just share with the audience what your experience was and how you were able to get to the place of where you are
Hmm. It's always a long story, isn't it?
now. It's fine. We got time.
Well, long story medium ish.
Right.
Um, I have always had a passion for health and wellness, but it started through athletics. So I was an athlete in high school and college. I played volleyball, and then I went on to play Division I volleyball and graduated from FAMU, Florida A&M University. Go Rattlers!
Go
And
Rattlers.
yes, Rattlers strike! And so that's where I did my college part of my college career. And coming out, working, finding myself as an adult, I realized that I was still interested in being in sports and wellness. So I made a career transition and got my master's in sports administration. At the time, I was living in Chicago, and I was coaching volleyball and things of that nature. And I tore my ACL while I was coaching a 17s team at practice. I tore my ACL.
Oh, wow.
It was awful. and and through my rehab and recovery, I learned about yoga.
Mm.
And I actually hated it at the beginning. I did not
Really?
like it. No, I was like, I'm
Yeah.
never.
Why? What was the
Oh,
issue?
I was like, I'm never doing that again. My friend was like, "Yes, you are. We just bought this Groupon." So I was like, "Okay, fine." It was hot yoga that I initially tried, and it was just very different. Like, it's just a very different experience going into a yoga studio. The culture of a yoga studio is different. You take your shoes off, you have, all these different things that uh, are just foreign, right? And then being in these very interesting shapes and hearing these interesting, it's literally like another world. It's just so different if you never experienced it before. So I think a lot of the barriers that a lot of people, especially Black and brown folks, maybe can't really articulate, those were the things that I was feeling, and
It's
also being
something new. It's something different.
something
Something that
new.
you're not used to. In fact,
Exactly.
I love Bikram yoga. That's the yoga I prefer. I love it hard,
Oh,
and,
okay.
and because it really helps me to be more a little bit more flexible,
Hmm.
and so I love it. It is a definitely a strenuous experience. I mean, if you've never experienced that before, so I can understand some of the challenges there. So you're saying that the started with the trauma from the injury, and you're athletic and you love these things, and now you're trying to figure out how to deal with this. And then what happened next?
So what happened next was actually I didn't practice much yoga after that. I mean, I did my sessions and things of that nature. I wasn't into it. I moved down to Miami in 2010, which is, I'm from Miami, and I was looking for a new line of work, and I came across someone who was a yoga teacher. I'm leaving out of a lot of details, but I started to learn more about the yoga world here in Miami from a community aspect. I
Mm.
went to some yoga events, and I started to see like how people were connecting. It just felt so beautiful and so peaceful and just very inclusive. And actually, the event that I went to was they were fun. The organization did yoga for blind folks at the, I think, Miami Lighthouse for the Blind, or I'm not sure the exact name of the organization. And so just seeing what a tremendous difference that practice made. And I've always been a very heart centered person. So doing things that are compassionate, heart centered, purpose driven, that already draws me in naturally. And so the combination of those two things was really, really intriguing to me. And so I started to, kind of become more into the yoga scene, and, essentially made friends with a teacher at the time. Her name is Terry Cooper Space. She owns a yoga studio called 305 Yoga, which is in North Miami. So if anyone's looking for a yoga studio space, that's always the number one place where I recommend. And I just, all of a sudden, I found myself in a teacher training. I was doing trauma informed yoga and outreach training. I was teaching at a studio. I mean, I was in it. I like to say, I was running around Miami with my shoes off and a yoga mat, just teaching all kinds of folks yoga. And that brought me to working in the nonprofit space because I wanted to combine my heart centered drive with my business degree and my business background in education. So I've been working in the nonprofit space for the past 11 years here in Miami. And, I've really enjoyed it. But recently, as of very recently, this is my first week. Actually, I have officially left the nonprofit space. I left my 9 to 5, and I'm fully focused on building my wellness business, my wellness brand of Brown Goddess Collective, and being my own boss, and really going after the life that I dream of, which is essentially what I teach other people to do. And I really believe that everyone can have a life that they dream of. It sometimes just has to look different. It may be on a different scale of what you're dreaming, right? Or you may have to start small, start somewhere. So this is me starting in that somewhere, right?
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations to
I'm
you.
really excited. It's been a long time coming, so I'm blessed and grateful and excited.
Well, I appreciate you telling us how you got from the beginning. And what I really appreciate is that, just really showing the human side. Hey, this is something I really didn't enjoy in the beginning. But it seems as if when you were in the environment, the energy was so powerful and so positive that it drew you in and really brought you into to doing what you're doing. And the energy continues to grow and saying, hey, listen, you got to jump out on faith and, start this journey.
Yeah.
So, what I'd like for you to do now, if you don't mind, is to give the audiences some examples of where things that they can do. We're gonna center you. I'm gonna go off screen. They're gonna take me off screen and we'll have you centered there and you can take us through a little routine or some exercises that we can do that folks can do to decompress, to de-stress. Here again, families that's watching, I want you to encourage your family members to come and participate in some of these exercises. Whether you have your active wear on or not, just come on and participate. And I assure you that there'll be something if you're focusing on it that will be beneficial to you. So, without further ado, the floor is yours. We'd like for you to give us an example of your mindfulness and your yoga exercises.
Okay, thank you. And yeah, this is something anyone can do. Um, one of my biggest fans of my meditation is a 9-year-old Black girl named Bella. She just loves my meditation. So this is something
Mm,
anyone can do. All right, so I want you to keep in mind too that when it comes to breathing and meditating and stretching, from the outside world and even from our own perspective, sometimes it can feel like, oh, there's not much happening. Like, come on already. And that feeling, I want you to notice if and when that comes up. Because what we want to do when we're in meditation or in a mindful practice, we're actually looking to slow things down a lot. And we live in a world where everything is about speeding up. So even the fact that I'm still talking right now, I haven't started our meditation or our breathing. I want you to stay patient, like really work on your patience as we move into this practice. So I'm going to teach you about 2, maybe 3, depending on time, different ways that you can ground yourself and come back to center at any point in time during your day. And so I do these in various ways. And you can do this sitting down, laying down, standing up, whatever works for you. So notice it's the exhale. Before you start something, before you start the next thing, before you get your kids from camp, before you have to get out of the car and run into the store, take an exhale. Like really think about letting go. And when you exhale, with a sound. Let's do that again. So You'll take a natural breath in, of course, and then you'll exhale with a sigh. And notice how that may even alleviate some pressure in your chest. So do that again. Take a regular breath in. Open up your mouth, relax your jaw, and just exhale. Let's do that again. So take a deep breath in through the nose. Open up the jaw, relax the mouth and the tongue, and exhale. Deep breath in through the nose. Deep breath out through the mouth. Again, deep breath in. Deep breath out. So now let's breathe in for 5 seconds. Inhale for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This time you'll hold the breath and just let it out with a sigh. Maybe you can even close your eyes or start to let your eyes be soft. And breathe in for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold the breath for 2, 1. Exhale with a sigh. Whew. All the way out. Let's do 2 more like that. So inhale. And now when you inhale, think about filling yourself up through the back of the body, through the sides of the body, like really expanding. Hold the breath. Exhale. All the way out. And last time, inhale. Maybe your eyes are closed or they can be open. Hold the breath and relax the shoulders, relax the neck, relax the jaw and the throat. Open the mouth, let the breath out. And now I want you to breathe in and out through the nose. And just let yourself find your normal pattern of breathing. And you can observe for yourself where and how the breath comes into the body. So does it come through the chest? Or do you expand through the belly? And what is it like when you exhale? Does it feel tight or constricting or loose and easy? So we'll keep breathing in this way. Again, eyes can be opened or closed, or you can just be looking down to soften your gaze. Notice if you can relax your jaw and your tongue and your eyes. So when we observe our body and scan our body for tension, pockets of tension, with the exhale, you can gently start to release that tension. And now start to bring yourself to the awareness of the things that you hear. So opening your ears to notice the sounds around you. Like I noticed someone honking their car horn. So I live at a busy intersection. Right? So instead of blocking that out, I choose to observe it and then let it pass. So notice the things that you hear that are in close proximity. Maybe it's your air conditioning, maybe it's other people, maybe it's yourself breathing. And instead of choosing or trying to block it out, can you choose to accept and embrace the sounds? Embrace the environment. Embrace what is. And when we practice that awareness and acceptance in our mindfulness time, then we can bring those things into our active time, the times when we're walking down the street or driving or working, just out in the world. And notice and bring yourself to the awareness of the things that you see. So you may even have your eyes closed, but you can see the colors. Soften your eyes, relax the muscles around your eyes. And if your eyes are opened, look at the things that are closest to you and look at the things that are furthest from you. This is when we activate the power of our vision. Relaxing our eyes. When we close our eyes, we are symbolizing turning away from external distractions. So even if it's for a moment, see if you can close your eyes and turn away from external distractions and focus on your breath. And staying there, bring yourself to the things that you taste. So the awareness of your mouth, the taste of your mouth, the tension in your jaw. Maybe you just ate, or maybe you're ready to eat. But when we release the tension in our jaw and we pay attention to our mouth, right? We get to also activate the power of our words, of our communication. So just think for a moment as you breathe how you communicate with your words. And if you use your words to heal and empower and uplift, or if you use your words as weapons to harm, to control, or maybe even manipulate. And when we observe ourselves in this mindful practice, we always add non-judgment. So we're just observing and noticing what we do. So then we can be empowered to make choices. Take a long breath in. You can place one or both hands on your chest or on your heart. And this will be our last area. So again, notice if you want to rush. If you notice the thoughts of this is taking too long, or when are we going to be done, and see if you can encourage yourself to stay with it. Take a deep breath in and fill up your heart space so let your chest get really big. Exhale and bring your mind to notice the things that you are feeling in your heart. So, this doesn't need to be something that you think about, and it may not even be something that you experience right now. Our meditation practice is a seed. So, it grows and it blooms and it unfolds over time. So, if you're not able to deeply connect or to notice the feelings or the emotions, see if you can breathe into compassion and acceptance. And oftentimes, when we notice how we're feeling, then we can make an empowered choice of how we will react and the things that we will do in practical terms. So, in our everyday life in the world, you may notice for yourself something that you'd like to add or something you'd like to take away so that you can be in a space where you're feeling balanced, grounded, and aligned with yourself, with your purpose, with your environment, with your people. Take a deep breath in through the nose. So, a really deep breath that fills you up. Hold the breath for 2, 1. Exhale with a sigh. You can release the hand from your heart. It's always good to get a little bit of movement so you can stretch out the neck, make some neck circles, roll the neck around. You may feel the tension in your neck or in your shoulders. I know I do. And then go the other way. And then just take some gentle inventory of how you're feeling right now and what came up for you and what you'd like to do about it. And so that's how we use a mindfulness practice to become aware so that we can take action, empowered action, so that we can have the results that we want. So it's a chain. Everything builds on each other.
Wow, that was intense. Thank you for taking us on that mindful journey. And not only mindfulness, because you use yoga breathing techniques in addition to that mindful. Is it considered to be yoga breathing techniques that you use?
Yes, absolutely.
So, so you did a combination of both, and just sitting here, and your voice is so tranquil and soothing, and to me, I think that if you're dealing with a high stressful situation or you're in a high stressful environment, that is an exercise that you can use to really uh, just calm the environment, calm yourself, bring yourself and center yourself in a place where you're peaceful. The breathing is definitely essential, and then just the guided imagery about what to pay attention to and that sort of thing. Thank you so much for that.
Welcome. It was my pleasure. It was my pleasure. Um, when I was younger, and I'm sure folks can relate to this, my grandma and the older folks used to say, get in there and sit down and rest your nerves. Rest your nerves. We just need to sit down, take a seat somewhere, rest your nerves, calm down, chill
Well,
out.
I'm going to tell you that is hard for some folks to do.
Very,
Sometimes it's hard for people to be with themselves.
yeah.
So that is a journey, and I think that this is how you can begin to gravitate towards being more comfortable with being with yourselves. Because, like I shared with you when I started, I would think about my calendar, I would think about food. Some folks really think about traumatic experiences, and it's very difficult and it's painful to sit through that. Like you said, And so that's a process of having to work with someone like yourself, not to try to do it alone. This is where you need to be with someone who's a professional. And as you speak to them and share with them about some of the challenges that you're having, they can help guide you through that work together, right? Speak to that.
Oh
I'm
my
sure that you have
goodness.
clients that come to you with those.
Absolutely. Because I am a trauma informed yoga and wellness professional. So, what that basically means is operating under the pretense that everyone has trauma that they've experienced. I mean, it's just a fact. By the time you're 18, um, 1 out of 2 people have experienced a traumatic event in their life, right? And that's, if you're lucky, you make it to 18, with very little trauma. And so sometimes just the neighborhoods that we grow up in, trauma
Yeah.
happens in all forms. And I encourage people to learn more about adverse childhood experiences, the ACEs, because that is just a tremendous metric of understanding how much trauma and what type of trauma you've accumulated over time. And what you don't want to try and do is try and work through your trauma by yourself. We're not wired to do that. Like, it's not something that human beings are supposed to do. We are supposed to be in community. We do need others to guide us. Doctors need doctors, right? So even myself as a mental health professional and in this industry, I got to a point where I would say at the end of last year, like, I was just experiencing stress on a whole new level, just in ways I had never experienced before, from feeling depressed to experiencing anxiety. And I was doing all the things, eating healthy, going to the gym, walking, nature. And I was having some specific stressors in my life that I knew were antagonizing, me mentally. And so after a certain point and after enough tears and after enough talking it out with my friends, and I just realized I'm saying the same thing now for 6 months. um, I went and explored the option of medication with my doctor, through my insurance. And I'm sure that that's something that the My Mental Health Miami website and the care coordination team support with, I would imagine. And I did start taking some medication recently in the past couple of months, and never done that before in my whole entire life. And wow, it was a game changer. It was a like a super game changer. And I'd had friends recently telling me and sharing with me their experience, other high functioning, very well adjusted adults. But life gets hard sometimes, and we need support, and sometimes you need a lot more support. And so I just want to also encourage that, like, if the things that you're dealing with are not going away, if they're not getting better, if as you try and implement different practices into your life, like yoga, like meditation, just know, like, we live in a world now where there are a variety of options for support, including, Western medicine and even some alternative medicines. And then also sometimes it could be physical, right? Like making sure that you go to the doctor and have your blood work checked. And like it could be hormonal, especially for women, depending on the stage of life that you're in.
Right.
So there's so many different factors. And, human beings, we're so sensitive. We're like sensitive. Um, we're a specimen, right? Like we're a
Right.
species, and it doesn't take much to throw someone off balance, off kilter. Even the strongest, best person, there is no such thing as someone who's strong enough to escape.
But that's one of the reasons why we have this program. One of the things that we want to do is dispel the myths about the stigma associated with mental health. As a family therapist by trade, and uh, as a clinician, I often tell people that our diagnostic tool is the DSM-5. Was the DSM-4 when I studied, but now it's the DSM-5. And any I can find a diagnosis on any human being that I interact with in that diagnostic tool. So it's not about it being a sign of weakness or a sign of something that that you're crazy or something like that. I don't even like to use that word. But what happens is that we all go through challenges. Everyone has had anxiety. If you had children, you see them in their different states of anxiety almost daily.
Mhm.
Everyone has gone through some level of depression. You lost a loved one, you had a significant loss or whatever. You've had something happen in your life where you feel down and out. You're really not motivated. You don't want to move. You don't want to be involved or what have you. Everyone is dealing with stresses, whether it be relationship related, whether it be job related, whether it be as a parent, whether it be as a sibling, whatever it is, we've all dealt with those things. The thing is that we need to figure out where we are in those levels of all of those areas. So again, I want to encourage you to go to mymentalhealthmiami.com. Go to the right-hand corner, click on the survey link, fill out the survey, get your score, know your score. Once you get your scorecard, then you can call the care coordination team, 786-433-8487. And the care coordination team will link you to services that you may need. They don't only have to be mental health services. They can be healthcare services. They can be services regarding housing. They can be services regarding employment, food, and that sort of thing. I want to thank you so very much, Shante, for joining us today. Again, our special guest today who took you on that wonderful exercise of mindfulness and combined with yoga, at Shante Haymore-Kearney, and she's with Brown Goddess Collective. Shante, share with us some of the events that you have coming up and how people can reach you in case they want to connect with you further after this.
Yeah, I'd be so excited for anyone to connect with me. So you can find Brown Goddess Collective on our website, browngoddesscollective.com. When you're on our website, you can sign up for our newsletter by downloading a free Spotify playlist. And, the Spotify playlist is interesting because a lot of people also associate yoga and wellness with like music that's all
Mhm.
woo woo and just oh, I don't know. I don't even know how to describe it. But I think when you listen to our playlist, you'll see how we infuse our culture. Our just being
Right.
our Black American, and we have Latinos. We have this is for women of all shades of brown. So folks who are Latina, we have someone who's Asian, Japanese in our collective, Muslim, Indian. So it's really about women of all shades of brown coming together, creating a community where we can be healthy, well, and supported with each other. And so we have monthly goddess circles where we meet via Zoom and we share, we connect. It's often based on a theme. We uplift. It's the best Zoom meeting of the month that you'll have, that's for sure. I have a lot of Zoom meetings, so this is my favorite Zoom meeting for sure. We will be starting up in person monthly classes again for us to practice yoga together because that was one of the ways that we initially started. But if you're looking for also a getaway, like I want to, like, you need to remove yourself and go to a new space and like try and understand like how to use also nature as a form of spirituality and healing and breath work and dive deeper and be with folks, Black and brown women who enjoy these sorts of things, then you can come with us on our retreat. We have our second annual Ready to Exhale retreat that's coming up on Labor Day weekend. So we're just a little less than 2 months away from that, September 1st. And it takes place in Asheville, North Carolina. And it's an all-inclusive retreat that does not include your travel, but it includes everything else. We stay in really beautiful luxury and kind of bougie accommodations. It's like nature and bougie meet. And this is the retreat where it all happens. So it's really fun. And I'd be happy to talk to anybody if they have questions about it or are interested in learning more about the retreat. You can reach me at browngoddesscollective@gmail.com. So yeah, go to the website, get the playlist, get on our newsletter so you can be in the happening, in the know of what's happening, and come on our retreat if you're interested.
So thank you so very much again, Shante.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed our talk today, learned a lot, and really enjoyed the exercise, the activity. I want to thank you so much for joining us, and hopefully you can join us again. Look forward to doing more work with you in the future. Okay.
Likewise. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate being here. And I love this initiative. It's so important.
Thank you. This is Ruben Roberts, and I'm signing off. This is our Wellness Wednesdays. We happen every Wednesday evening at 7 p.m. This is a pre-recording, so we will not be, we won't have any live question and answers. But if you have any questions, or if you would like to leave something in the chat box for us, what we will do is we'll make sure we forward that information over to Shante, or if you have something that you want to ask me about, you can leave that in the chat box as well, and we'll respond to you. Thank you all. Have a great evening. Good night.